What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful people? It is League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys, continuing the dive, the trudge through the off-season, heading into 2021. And pretty much every day, you get some new news. Today, it's T1 back in the headlines, but it's for roster reasons at the very least. It's not any controversy, which feels like a long time we haven't had that with them.
As long as their Discord and their Twitter account are nowhere near this type of announcement, this type of signing, this seems like it could be good news for the, let alone the league community, for the rest of the T1 fans.
Yeah, and their Twitter is back and active, guys. I know it was going down for a bit. They just said, cancel it, put out the fires. We'll just cancel everything. But we got to bring the Twitter back online to announce the signing. T1 Keria. We know that DRX are blowing up that whole roster, totally mismanaged at the top of the table. Is that org? We've seen that for 2+ years now. So Keria coming over to T1, obviously on paper, big upgrade over effort, I think is safe to say. And they've locked him up for what sounds like a multi-year deal.
Yeah, multi-year deal. That's the key one for a lot of people looking at this. Because look, when you talk about Keria, what he is able to bring, what play we've seen from him already, you've had many people talk about him as one of the best supports in the world already, and a clear, case to become the undisputed best support player in the world. That's what type of potential he brings to any roster that he's on. We've already seen a lot of that positives, a couple missteps. That's going to happen at such a young, early point of a career, but so many big strides made in the early first year. This is extremely exciting for T1 fans to pair him in that bot side. I don't care who it's going to be. Teddy, Gumiyashi, doesn't matter. It's going to be an incredible strength from the bot side.
And people, they're so quick, especially in eSports, when somebody has an off split or not to the same level that we're accustomed to seeing. He's washed up. He's no good. It was a fluke that he was good before. He's played 1 year, guys. He's played 2 splits. He's 18 years old. He turned 18 at Worlds. Yes, him and Def did not perform as a bot lane to the level that DRX needed or that we expected, but a fantastic spring, an okay summer. This guy's the real deal. He's only going to get better on T1. He's only going to get better the more splits under his belt. And yeah, I think we're definitely talking about him as one of the best supports in the world in 2021.
Right. And again, the big thing is that multi-year contract, not only just for keeping him within the organization for all those years, but as much as we talk about potential, having that fallback, having that idea of, the first year that you get here, it's not, well, you better put up or shut up type of performance. You're on T1 now. This is a clear commitment that, look, we want you and we want you in the future as well. So we want to be here as you develop, as you grow. We want to help you in those things, because not only are obviously you going to benefit becoming a better player, but hey, where are you signed for all those years? T1, we're going to benefit. That's the big one, developing Keria, getting in early on this one for the T1 organization.
Yeah, and obviously the coaching staff, the organization has changed over the years, but we still have seen a development out of T1, and now for younger players, and now especially with Kana and Keria in your bot or top and support roles as these young, not rookies, but now heading into their sophomore years. That's something that they can even grow together. That should be a package you're trying to lock up for multi-year contracts with Kana alongside him. And then, the jungle spot still kind of left open for T1. Tarzan's going to the LPL. Who knows what they're going to be going for. It also sounds like I just hyped up Kana, but apparently T1's been inquiring about Nuguri as well to bring him over. Nuguri, people are saying he wants to stay on Damwon, but he would consider T1.
Yeah, T1, even with everything that's, obviously more so in the Western audiences and how we're disapproving of everything that's gone on this past offseason, really, with T1 and the management side. Easy to forget the power that it still holds and carries, obviously, in Korea and the Eastern regions, of the prestige of the championships that they have won, this organization, banking on that. And that would be a reason why someone like Naguri would look at it. I don't know too much about those rumors. From what I've seen about the rumors connecting Naguri to T1, they've also had Knavi stepping in as the jungler. And I'm very doubtful about him leaving the LPL and JDG. So
I can't see
on those. But that would be a massive, massive shaker in the LPL.
I
excuse me.
I don't think T1 should be jumping the ship on Kana so quickly. Yes, Nuggery right now is probably better, but just like Keria, there's so much more that you could be getting out of Kana. And for him to quickly become the best performing member on a team like T1 in his first year I'd be giving him another chance. And if you're Nuggery, sure, you want to go to the pedigree of T1 and championships. But what did you just do? You just won the world championship. You weren't on T1. I don't see this one going through.
Yeah, if I'm Nuggery, I'm staying with Damwon, my man. I'm sticking with my boys. I'm staying with Canyon. I'm staying with Showpick. I'm staying with the bot lane that we have. I think of what Damwon has created and the momentum that they're going to carry with them to next year and how they're going to play. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be leaving that ship anytime soon. For T1, this is a massive signing for let alone this year and what you're going to be able to do with your bot lane and how he can step in right away. But of course, the development, the potential moving into further years of this contract, that's where you're really going to see this one get even more value.
So you mentioned Kanavi, and I think jungle's the only other spot that T1 should be looking at in the offseason, whether it's someone coming in with Elam, just upright replacing Cuz with somebody, but I think some change needs to be made there. Kanavi, sure, if you can get Kanavi, that seems like a great number one priority, but you think they should and will make a change in the jungle?
I think they should make a change. I'm not necessarily against Cuz coming back in any type of form. I think that he is someone that can show us and did show us for brief periods of times with T1 a better form than we did end up with him for the most part. When you're talking about Elam, I think that is, of course, the move, at least within the T1 organization for the future in the jungle path. But I still think he's a little bit too green, especially when you're talking about, having Keria on the roster as well. T1, other teams, other organizations, you can go full youth movements and you can find ways to do it. But as long as you're having a guy like Faker on the lineup, you've got Teddy still there. The idea with T1 is, yes, sure, this Keria performance and contract is going to pay off later. Yes, Kana is going to keep developing if you're going with him in the top side. But there does have to be some pressure. Start putting up some performances to start getting back to that T1 of old. To, put up the results that SKT put up, right, as the T1 name. That's what you need to start doing as an organization. And if you're moving with just Elam as your jungler, that's a little bit too unproven, a little bit too unpredictable for this next year.
And I say that jungle should be the only spot where something does change, but who actually starts more as AD carry, which I didn't think would ever be a question, and you imagine it's still going to be Teddy. But with how things ended, their season ended on the line, and Gumayushi starting, and he performed pretty well. It was by no fault of his own. He might be wanting an LCK starting spot, could probably warrant one on some of these middle-tier LCK teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The way that he plays and the talent that's there could fight for one of these starting spots. The question, as you said, is going to be what's going to happen with that starting spot. Because when we looked at when he stepped into the lineup, it wasn't exactly about Teddy playing extremely poor. He wasn't playing very well at the time, but he wasn't necessarily being the issue. But it really did seem more so that Coach Kim and the coaching staff wanted to make that change. They felt that was the best approach into these series. So it's going to be interesting, obviously, with a different coaching staff, brand new staff coming through, how they're going to feel about the players and what they want to be doing.
Yeah, maybe the organization didn't like that move, and that's one of the reasons Coach Kim's no longer with the team. Who knows? Maybe they wanted Teddy in their final series of the season. T1, we'll see how the roster ends up filling out. Maybe Keria signing is the only actual change they'll end up doing in the offseason. One team that ended up doing a whole lot of changing in the offseason was FlyQuest, Cloud9 Green. We kind of looked at their projected roster the other day and we said, well, they got Deftly, Wild Turtle's still there, he should be the starting AD carry, but they weren't done. FlyQuest said, listen, we're going as North American as we can with this roster, and let's bring the most promising AD carry domestic talent outside of tactical onto our squad. Johnson gets the promotion out of the depths of ELO hell that was Dignitas.
And it's easy to forget for a lot of people that before Tactical stepped up onto the scene and gave us some of these amazing, 3v5 level performances and what he did at Worlds, a lot of people were talking about Johnson as that ADC of the future from North America. What he was able to do early in the spring with Dignitas was fantastic type of stuff. And then, a little bit more of a slump and obviously struggling with the rest of the struggles that Dignitas suffered throughout the year. That plays into it for sure. But when you're looking at him as a talent, as this, a blue chip type prospect, the type of ones that FlyQuest has with this roster, let alone of this North American talent, it's pretty exciting when you think about what they're able to do, how they were able to retool. Because if I told you that they were losing Santorn, they were losing Power of Evil, and that I'd still be excited about FlyQuest heading into next year and think that they have a legitimate shot at not only being in the top 5, but competing to the top end in North America, hey, that's all gravy for FlyQuest.
It's just so rare that you have a complete off-season turnover. We're talking all 5 new members for FlyQuest, and for a team that's not spending a ton of money, because sure, you have Team Liquid in 2018 where they just got all these big names when Doublelift came over with Xmithy, Pobelter, Impact. But I mean, aside from Licorice, I don't think they were cashing in on a lot of these players. It's probably a relatively cheap roster, and you see it on paper, and it's mostly NA players, almost all, if you're including Jose Dioto as an American, South American player coming in. And then, I mean, they're pretty cheap, but you have not high, but you have expectations that this should be a deep playoff team, and you're actually excited with 5 new full roster turnover coming in.
I can't really think of many opportunities or many times in the history of, let alone the LCS, but League of Legends, that you've ever seen so much turnover and yet still be excited for what is possible for this retooling and really, as you said, kind of a budget retool, and not really about FlyQuest saying, we got to pinch some money here, just of what they were able to get on the market, where their power was as an organization still, because as we've talked, yes, all these amazing steps for FlyQuest, they're still growing. They're still building on that reputation, that pedigree. When they talk to certain professional players, to agents of that nature, these type of things all matter. And as FlyQuest is building as an organization, to get what they did accomplish, to have what they have, and to then look at it and say, you know what, there's actual potential. There's potential for growth from this, and to get even better. That's extremely exciting, and I actually am really happy for the FlyQuest organization and for their fan base that they've been building, especially over the past year.
And for Johnson in particular, he's done exactly what you would want out of a player on a not very good team. Exactly the opposite of what Forgiven did on Schalke when they started 0-7, because Dignitas for a while didn't look like they could pick up a win. But time and time again, you're watching games or you're watching highlights and you say, Johnson stands out, even in team fights where they might lose. He's playing them perfectly. He's dancing on that line of aggressive.
You go, why is this Dignitas game all of a sudden like stretching out? Oh, because Johnson made a play out of his mind to turn around one of these team fights, and all of a sudden it's not as big a gap type of thing.
And the fact that Dig were winless for so long, similar to that Schalke squad with Forgiven, and at the end of the split, you're still talking about Johnson top 4, top 5 in most of the major categories for AD carries statistically, and he's passing the eye test. That's why he's getting this opportunity on FlyQuest and why he deserves it.
For a lot of people that aren't aren't closely paying attention to the LCS scene, aren't really watching some of these games, that you might go, Cloud9's not playing, TSM team, like, I don't care, move it off. You really are missing out on some of this, because there's very few instances of it, sure, but there are a couple, and some of these bright spots in North America, and they shine pretty darn bright. And Johnson is absolutely one of our brightest stars.
There's just not too many diamonds in the rough. That's why they're diamonds in the rough. But this is an example of what people want North America to do going forward in developing Palafox, Diamond, Johnson, giving them opportunities, native North American players. And what you're also seeing now with these minor regions coming in and not taking up import slots if you're from the OPL, because now it sounds like Immortals are bringing in Raze and Destiny for an all OPL bot lane, which this is only, I know people are going to be mad that there's no North American players on any of these squads. But one of the biggest issues with NA is the small player base compared to Europe, China, Korea. When you implement all these minor regions all playing, it's only going to make the region as a whole more competitive.
Look, there's certain situations where you can talk about that and you can criticize that. Right now, as you said, with the player base being so small and with the player base of elite talent being so small, it's hard to really push that right to the forefront right away and say, hey, look, we want to give you opportunities. We want to develop. Here you go. Take it away and let's go and let's have some good results. That's not exactly how it should ever be working.
No.
What we're seeing is this influx of these other regions, these minor region talents, which obviously fantastic for them to get their opportunities. As you said, I think it's only going to push the talent in the player base, that level of players that we have that are just below what's necessary. They're absolutely going to have to find that next gear, that next level of competition to get to where they need to be, where we're seeing these wild card regions push our native region players.
And they're going to push them within their own region now. And we've talked about, okay, you don't want to scrim the academy team because the academy guy is going to take your job. Well, that work ethic, I feel like the minor region guys are going to come and feel like they absolutely have something to prove. And they might just outwork these LCS veterans who have been around for 3-4 years and have kind of, gotten into a routine. This is how it goes, just going through the motions. And then all of a sudden, a young upstart player from the OPL says, I got something to prove. I'm going all out. And all of a sudden, you're out of a gig.
Yeah, I have no doubt that will be the case that we'll see, let alone maybe in the immediate future, but in the near future, I have no doubt that that's something that we can see, because as you've seen, as we know from these wildcard region players, every time you see them, it is always hard work, hard dedication, and practice. And what we've seen sometimes in the LCS, as you talk about, is that unwillingness to push for that next level, to push forward. Hey, if buddy beside you is in solo queue pushing for that next level, you better bet your bottom dollar that you are going to be logging in to get into solo queue next.
Especially if that man's going to take your job if he starts getting better than you. So even if there's less fully North American teams, guys, that's been a theme for multiple years now, especially as more of these imports are getting domesticated or becoming residents in NA. That's just the way it's going to go. But as a whole, the region should still be more competitive, and your favorite minor region players are going to get better opportunities when international events do roll around. Speaking of said international events, now I hesitate to actually call it an international event, but we're talking All-Stars because the voting did wrap up the LPL technically is still going on, but most of them have wrapped up all of their voting. And the big four, let's preface this. All-Star voting, it's for the fans, and the fans are voting. It's not going to be a representation of who was the best performing player from a specific role in a region. That's just not how it works.
It's never worked that way. No. For All-Stars having it.
Not even just eSports. It's the same in the NBA, the NFL. That's just All-Star games.
It's one of the tragedies that come with the All-Star format.
And especially this year, you look, so the LCS, for example, the All-Star team looks pretty familiar. You got Impact, Broxa, Jensen, Tactical, and Core JJ. Wasn't that the third seed for NA at Worlds? Now, the big asterisk is there were no TSM or Cloud9 members that you could be voting for. Well, I think Licorice was on there for Cloud9, it's a little confusing. But because they weren't available, Team Liquid was just eating up all the votes. Understandably so.
Yeah, and slightly unfortunate, I think, given the way that without TSM and Cloud9, you might have hoped that you could have seen a little bit more developing talent from the region step into these all-star fun events, get their share and chance in the spotlight. But yes, as far as all-star, putting that into motion, there's no doubt about it to me that it would have to be pretty much the exact starting lineup from Team Liquid this past year.
For the LEC side, you have Whippo, Selfmade, Humanoid, Hansama, and Hillisang. And again, before everyone's panicking, Humanoid over Caps? What planet are we on? No G2 members were available for voting, and Reckless also not available for voting. Hey, take that as you will. Maybe G2 Reckless. The rest of Fnatic guys made the list. Maybe something fishy is going on there. Or Reckless says, I always go to All-Stars. Let somebody else go.
Yeah, and look, we talked about this when we were heading towards the announcement for All-Stars. Is slight disappointment in some of these unavailability type of situations with players realizing that, look, most years at All-Stars I can understand wanting to go, I need this break, I need this time off, I don't want to travel, these type of situations. This year that excuse does not exist playing online for this event, this tournament. I think that type of fan engagement would have been cool, but you know what? Hey, no use crying over spilt milk.
That's true. It's also popularity, a lot of them. As you can see on the LCK, Faker, we knew he would go. He got 58% of the mid lane votes. He wasn't the best performing mid laner in 2020, but I got no problem with him going. He hasn't missed one since 2013. He's been there since 2014 at every single All-Star event. Deft also got voted in. We know he was not the best performing AD carry in the LCK, but the craziest thing is BDD got less votes than T1 closer. That's something.
That is extremely surprising. I guess there's a lot of anger about how Gen G flopped out of Worlds this year. Because it's crazy to think that that's his standings in the LCK, and you go over to the LPL where they're still voting. Our man BBD. Let me make that clear. BBD.
Substitute EDG AD carry.
Is third in the ADC voting in the LPL, which is crazy for number one. It's the wrong region. It's the wrong position. And it's the wrong spelling, guys. Come on. It's not. I have a hard problem understanding even the BDD situation in the LCK. But what's going on with BBD in the votes in the LPL is even more crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I can only think people are memeing because, yeah, to misinterpret the spelling of the name, the wrong position, and the wrong region, that's honestly impressive if you did that unintentionally. And apparently a lot of people did because, yeah, he got more votes for AD carry in the LPL than BDD did mid laners in the LCK, which is
absolute insanity.
Absolutely insane. And then the LPL, you have Bin, Karsa, Doinb, Jackie Love, and Sword Art. Nice to see Karsa and Sword Art both there. First time they're representing the LPL at All Stars. They've gone to represent the LMS before, but first time with the LPL. Doinb over Knight is another popularity thing for sure. Obviously, Knight is the deserving mid laner to go based purely on performance.
And that's one of those ones where I actually have a hard time talking about this one in the sense of Knight goes to All Stars. That's fantastic. Everybody's going to get exposed to what level of play that he can bring. And especially talking about, man, putting him in the 1v1 tournaments, that would be fantastic. But there is also clearly the side of what Doinb brings, his personality, how he's
much better suited for an all-star event, just who he is.
He's absolutely the perfect player, the perfect professional to bring to All-Stars. You get Yumi, his wife, to come over as well. Everything for Doinb and Yumi and everything for them to be involved with All-Stars is fantastic, and it makes sense. I do feel, though, for some of the fans that were hoping to get a little bit more exposure of Knight internationally, because I feel you. He is the deserving by the name All-Star, sure. But if you want to have some fun at this event, which I know Riot does, and they want to give some good value to the viewers, Doinb is the pick.
I'm glad that Bin got voted in. People didn't go back to the Shy 2019 and say, yeah, he deserves to go. Bin absolutely.
Not this year. Please, not this year.
Absolutely deserving to go. And I'm really excited to see Canyon murder some people on the Rift.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited that we get Sword Art to go back, as you said, with Karsa representing for the LPL. I think that's an exciting angle to look at, and especially considering could be looking down the face of TSM Sword Art in the next year. So nice to see him go out on the LPL All-Star team.
Although Huan Fang said his stuff is still here. I don't think he's leaving.
Oh,
I mean,
think that's him.
He didn't leave yet, Huan Fang.
He doesn't want him to leave, I think.
I don't think he's just on a flight out to North America right away. I think
Huan Fang's going to dump the suitcase out and say, you can't go now. Whoa.
Yeah, he's going to stash himself into the suitcase and just come with him. All of a sudden, it's Huan Fang and Sword Art on TSM.
Hey, TSM Huan Fang.
Sorry, double lift. That's just the way it goes. But that is it today for League Unlock, everybody. We'll be talking All-Stars and the offseason as it continues to roll on. Thank you for hanging out with us. As always, catch you on the flippity flop.